Hi guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the little cushion that we were doing, and we're going to talk about cloth dynamics. Because now, as you can see, we do have our little heart-shaped pillow right here, but I would like to add a cover and add like some fluffy little curvy lines on the side, very similar to something you would find on a girl's bedroom, right? So the thing here is now I want to create the actual cover. And this is one of the principles of cloth. That's why I call this chapter cloth dynamics, right? Because we need to start thinking about cloth and garments and patterns as tailors. So if I want to make a cover for this like volume that's heart-shaped, I need to use this exact same shape, but I need to make it a little bit bigger, right? So that it covers and fully like embraces this shape right here. So I'm gonna select this guy, and I'm gonna move it up like there. Then I'm gonna select this pattern. I'm gonna say Control C, Control B, and we're gonna create a new pattern right here. Doesn't need to be like live linked or anything. This one, it's its own little pattern. Yes, it has like symmetry, which is fine for us, but we don't need it to be connected to the other one. I'm not gonna simulate just yet. I'm actually gonna move this thing to the side and up like this. There we go. Now I'm gonna select this one, or actually this one, Control C, Control B as well, and I'm gonna go here. But we have a big problem right here. And the problem is that one part of our little heart shape, as you can see, it's dark and the other one's white. Those are the normals. If you're familiar with any other 3D software, you know that faces usually have one like facing side, and that's called the normal. So this guy right here is the normal facing direction, the white one. And if I were to sew these two together, the sewing lines would have a little bit of conflict because they would go from the outside to the inside, and that usually creates some problems. So for these two particular ones, I'm actually going to select this one, right click, and I'm going to use this option called flip normal, which, as you can see, it's going to rotate this thing to the other side. Now I'm going to select both elements. So you can see we get this transformation box, and I'm going to make them slightly bigger. Not super big, just slightly bigger, just so there's enough room for this guys to comfortably cover this guy right here. I'm going to bring them down. I'm going to bring this guy up. I'm gonna do something very cool. I'm gonna grab this guy, these two guys, and I'm gonna right click and hit this button called freeze. What freeze will do, as the name implies, it will freeze that simulation. So this cushion will not simulate, it will not fall down, it will be taken into account for all the other simulations, but it won't move, which is very cool because I don't want to create any wrinkles right now on the bottom part of the cushion. Now, if I were to simulate right now, what's going to happen is this one, yes, it's going to fall on top of this one, but this one's going to fall all the way down because it doesn't know that it needs to be stitched together to this guy up here, right? To do that, we need to use our stitching tool, which is this one, the sewing tool, and we're going to be using segment sewing. Now, as you can see, we have one segment here, and we're going to do the same one over here. But, oh, surprise, that's actually not the one that we need because as you can see, we're creating a super horrible element over there. So we actually have to go from this one to this one over here. As you can see, this one does work the way it's intended. We don't have to do it on the other side because we have this light editing like thing turned on. So whatever we do on one side is going to happen to the other side. Very important to make sure that your stitching is straight and that the parts that you want to stitch together are going in the direction that you want. A very common mistake with stitching is that you click this and then you see like a couple of lines and you really don't know which one it is. Usually you want to follow the same line. So if you click over here, usually you're going to go here. Because if you go here, what's going to happen, as you can see here, is the stitching is going to be reversed. So it's going to stitch this side to this underside, which again, that's something that sometimes you might want for some particular garments. But in this case, we want things to be even. So from here to here, and as you can see, everything remains straight. Now, if we simulate, as you're going to see, bloop, we get our nice little cover for our heart-shaped cushion. Careful there. You can see that if I try to move this thing, the simulation doesn't really know how to handle it. And there we go. Now I can select these two guys again, press A to go into selection mode, select these two guys, right click, and we can hit unfreeze. By the way, the shortcuts are Control K to freeze and unfreeze. And now this happens. Like, why is my cushion going all the way over there? Well, because remember we had the pressure things going on? When we duplicated this, guys, we actually had the pressures set for them as well, and we don't want that. And since we flipped the normals for this guy, it's now pushing both of them upwards. So that's why it's like floating all the way to infinity. So I'm gonna set both of this to 0. And now when we simulate, the cushion should fall down. It's probably gonna take a little while to adjust. If this happens, that's like the engine like freaking out. Don't worry, you can go here and try to reset the 3D arrangement. I'm going to grab this guys first, and I'm just going to say Control K to freeze them. And let's simulate the little cushion first. There we go. Let's keep simulating. Let's make this thing like fall to the ground. There we go. And then I'm gonna stop the simulation, grab these two guys, bring them up. There we go. Now let's grab this pattern right here. This is the upper pattern. So just click. Careful which like axis you select. It's the y-axis. And let's move it so that we match this as close as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect because the shape itself will try to correct itself once it goes where it's supposed to go. That's really weird. Okay, let me grab these two guys. I'm gonna again control freeze them, control K, and then this guy I'm gonna control K to unfreeze. Let me reset it to the patterns. As you can see, we reset only the ones that are unfreeze, and then we push this guy forward or up. Let's rotate and get it there. There we go, as close as possible to the shape that we want. The gizmo is a little bit different to other 3D softwares. Don't get like confused about that one. It's normal. Control K again on this one to unfreeze. And now if you simulate, you can see that this thing actually falls like a pillowcase on top of our heart shape. Now we can again select this guys, again Control K to unfreeze, and bloop, the thing falls to the ground. And there we go. Our little like heart-shaped pillow is working very, very nicely. Something that has happened to some of my students when we're doing this exercise is that the pillow starts like becoming really, really flat. That might be because you don't have enough pressure on your heart shape. So if I were to go here and change the pressure, for instance, this one's gonna be like, I don't know, like 1, and then this is like -1. What's gonna happen is that the thing is gonna fall and it's gonna become flat. Why? Because the what's the word? The weight of the cloth itself, it's actually like generating some problems. I think we're gonna have to reset the 3D layout just once more, because you can see this thing is trying to go through the other side, and that's not what we want. Like the cover didn't manage to like cross the element. So very easy way to do this is just pause this. Let's select all the patterns because they're already like pretty much on the shape that we want, and then just select this pattern right here. Like, let's move this forward, and then this pattern right here, and let's just move it down. Again, let's select this guy, Control K, simulate again, bloop, there we go. The little thing falls where it's supposed to go, and now we can select this guys again and just Control K, and the pillow is gonna fall. Perfect. And you can actually like move this pillow around, like around the scene, and it's gonna work just fine. Whoop. Maybe that was a little bit too much force. There we go. Now I want to add this sort of like ruffles on the side, like imagine another piece of clothing going throughout the side of the element. That's gonna work as a little detail for our pillow here. So to do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna again Control C and Control B this guy to create another pattern. And then from this pattern, I want to create something called an external line or an internal shape. So I want to follow the exact same pattern, but just extend it a little bit more. So very simple to do. I am going to go into Edit Pattern, grab the pattern, and right-click and select Offset as Pattern Outline, Offset Pattern Outline. Now this tool right here will allow me, as you can see, to extend the border of my pattern as much as I want. So in this case, I do want to go quite far. So I'm going to say 100 millimeters, which is 10 centimeters. And I do want to create an internal line so that I know, where the, let's go again. So right click, here, right click, Offset Pattern Outline. So we're going to extend 100. And we're going to create the internal line. It's very weird that it's not letting me do it. Oh yeah, that's right, because we have this like live linking thing. Okay, so we have to remove that live linking. So I'm going to right click here, and here I'm going to say remove linked editing. So now it's just a single pattern. Now I should be able to go again into Edit Pattern, transform this, or sorry, edit the pattern, go select both pattern lines, one on each side, right click, and now I'm going to offset this pattern. There we go. So now I should be able to say 100. We get this. I do want to create the internal line. I'm going to hit OK. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have the exact same pattern as I had before, but now there's an extra line, and this is what's giving me the amount of cloth that I want. I'm going to select this line, both of them actually, right click, and I'm going to say Cut and Sew. So now what this is doing, it's pretty much like removing the border of my pattern from this shape. And this shape we don't need anymore. I just need this shape right here. Because what I'm going to do, as you guys can imagine, is I'm going to be sewing this thing onto this pillow right here, which is going to give me the sort of effect that I'm going for. Now, here's a principle that I want to talk about real quick about cloth length. Usually, when you have two pieces of fabric like this, and you stitch them together, grab a different color. If the pieces of fabric are of the same size or really close in size, then the cloth is gonna flow very, very nicely. We do this a lot with dresses and shirts and jackets and stuff when we want the movement to be very, very smooth. However, if you have two pieces of fabric and one fabric is way, way bigger than the other one, what's gonna happen is, yes, you can stitch both of them to the same piece, to the same edge. But what's gonna happen, as you can imagine, is the longer piece will have to have a little bit more crunchy to it, more crunchiness, more wrinkles, more folds, because it needs to contract a little bit to be able to fit on this border right here. And that's exactly what we're going to be using to our advantage in this particular case. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this thing just slightly more. And that escalation, that like little change that we do there, that's really, really going to help. Let me grab like all of this, guys. I'm just going to hit Control K to freeze them, and then just reset the 2D layout so that we get this clean. Let's bring it closer to our heart shape, like this. And there we go. Now we need to sew this element together. And again, there's a couple of ways to this. We can use our segment sewing and say, hey, I want this guy to be sewn to this guy. Looks good. And this guy to be sewn to this guy. Oh, actually, this guy. There we go. So that looks good. And if we simulate, even if those things are frozen, we can simulate, and this thing, as you can see, will go exactly where we're expecting it to go. Let's go and create this very nice ruffles all the way around. So yeah, that's working nicely. However, I want to show you another like little tool that we're going to be using quite a bit, which is called the free sewing tool. And the free sewing tool works especially well when the patterns are not the exact, or the segments are not exact. So you just click on one side, go across all of your pattern, and click, and then click where you want to sew, go across the whole pattern, and click. As you can see, it gives us the exact same result, with the advantage that it's a little bit like easier because you just have to do this once instead of doing two segments. Right now, two segments is not that big of a deal, but you're going to see later on with some patterns, it can become quite tricky. So I'm just going to simulate right here, and boop, as you can see, we get our nice little ruffles, and we get a lot of detail on them. Now, there's one more thing that we can do. We can actually add another layer to give them a little bit of volume, kind of like creating a little vacuum, like what we did with the first little shape right here. So I'm going to select my pattern, right-click, and I'm going to say copy or clone as. Sorry. Here's the pattern. There we go. Right-click, and we're going to do a layer clone over in this case. Now, why over, why under, doesn't really matter. Just keep in mind that the one that you set to over, you probably want to have positive pressure, and then the one you set to under, you probably want to have to negative pressure. So this one, I'm going to say this is going to have a pressure of like 5, and then this one's going to have a pressure of -5. There we go. So when we simulate, again, we're only simulating the ruffles there. You're going to see how we get a very nice like inflated effect, right? Like so there's kind of like a vacuum inside of them. Maybe it's like an extra like filling in there that makes it fluffy and stuff. Now, as you can see, we need to simulate everything else. So let's select these patterns right here, all of them. Oop. And I'm gonna press Control K again to unfreeze. And now everything is simulating. I would like this normals to be flipped. So I'm gonna pause the simulation real quick, select this pattern, right click, flip normals. So flip, no, it's not that one, over here, right click and flip normal. There we go. And since we flip the normal, we also need to change the pressure. So let's go to 5. So when we simulate, the pressure is going to be positive right there. And as you can see, we get this very, very cool effect throughout the whole thing. Now, we can increase the details. Right now, I really like the detail on the inside of the cushion, but I think that the outside could have a little bit more detail. So what did we say when we were talking about particle density? Once we're happy with the result, we can change the particle distance. So I can go here and say, hey, let's go all the way down to 10. So with the particle distance of 10, now we're going to get way more like little details here and there, way more wrinkles, and we're going to get a nice little effect. There's another thing that we can change. Remember the shrinkage, weft and warp. Well, there's also this thing called elastic that's gonna give us an elastic feel to the whole pattern. So I'm gonna select both of them, and I'm gonna turn on elastic. Now this one works a little bit different. You can see we can immediately get this like crunchy effect because we're using a ratio of 80. It's kind of like a factor of elasticity. So if we bring the ratio down, it's all gonna be like super tight and super elastic. You usually want to keep it like at 90 or something. If you go all the way up, then you're gonna have like a different effect. So I'm gonna say something like a 90, so that we get some crunchy effect to the whole thing, like this plushy little thing, but not like super intense. And we can even bring the whole thing like lower and lower, but I think this is good enough. Now, what I'm going to do here to organize my patterns a little bit better, let's stop the thing for just a second. I'm going to grab this guy. Oop. Let's bring this to the side because that's the inner side of the element. Let's bring them to the center. Those are the main ones. And then let's bring them to the side. And we're going to save this as two different formats. This is very important. First, we're going to save this as just a project. And a project is something that you're going to be able to modify every time you need it, right? So when I hit File, Save As, Project, we get this. And I'm going to save this, of course, in our chapters. So in chapter 1, we're going to have this heart, pillow, and that's going to be our project. So you can actually go in this project and modify it. Very important. It's actually going to save you a PNG file to preview what the project is about. So don't be scared if you see a PNG on your folder, because that's the preview of the thing right here. And you're also going to save this as a garment. So I'm going to save as and say garment. And when you save this as a garment, you can see that I actually have another one right here. Let's call this Heart Pillow Volume 2. Something very interesting is going to happen. It's going to, by default, save it onto your garment folder. So as you can see, we have several ones. Oh, it seems like I created an override here for my shirt pattern. I definitely have to bring that back. So yeah, be kind of careful with that one, because I think we started with this pattern with the t-shirt example. So yeah, this is the pattern. So if I'm working on anything else and I want to bring this pattern in, I just need to double click this and I'm going to bring these things in. So as you become more and more experienced with Marvelous Designer, you're going to start building up your library, and you don't have to do everything every single time. That's the like great thing about this, that you're going to be able to reuse certain parts or certain patterns that are going to be important for our whole workflow. So yeah, that's pretty much it. One last thing we can do is we, for instance, can go to our fabrics here, similar to what we did over with that one, and I'm just going to look for like silk. Let's just import this first silk, and I'm gonna like add this silk to all of my patterns, only the outer ones to be honest, and we can change the color to like a nice romantic red. There we go, we have this cushion. You can save the garment with this like fabric as well, and it will be saved with the specific material. So super handy. And that's it, guys. This is it for this particular video. We're gonna have a couple of more videos talking about, again, basics of the clothing system and the basic tools here inside of Marvelous Designer. So make sure to be working on your exercises. Make sure to reference the projects if you need to, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.